Hello, hi everyone, and welcome to this month's LinkedIn Loving Live, where we are shining a light on the world's leading B2B social media platform. That, of course, is LinkedIn. And today I'm delighted to be joined by B2B content writer Sarah McKinley to talk about why human insights win on LinkedIn. Because, you know, anyone and everyone we can create content very quickly in mass with AI, but does it make that content interesting to read? Because we can kind of tell, can't we? We can kind of feel when something is written in AI because it lacks that certain authenticity. But don't get me wrong, I love AI. It's great for helping with, research ideas, for brainstorming. I love having that little bit of toing and froing with AI going, I don't think that's quite right. But what we need to do is really make our content sing. It's actually bring in our own personal experiences and expertise. So that's why I'm delighted Sarah is joining me today to talk about how we can create content that's not only worth reading, but also importantly aligns with LinkedIn's new AI-based algorithm, which may or may not be called 𝗟𝐶 𝐿, but we'll come to that. But it's a game changer for LinkedIn. It really is. It's a game changer for LinkedIn content. I think that's really important. So, hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us. It's lovely to have you here.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here, Judy.
Well, I'm very excited to hear about all your insights because content is one of those things for me that's always a bit of a challenge. So anything that helps me with content is a good thing as far as I'm concerned. So just before we start, if you are new to these love-ins and wondering what the heck they are short, bite-sized LinkedIn learnings over lunch. And every month I'm joined by a guest expert to share their expertise on subjects to help you support with your LinkedIn activity and results. Now, I do like to make them as interactive as possible. So if you do have any questions, please put them in the comments box on the event page on LinkedIn and also on YouTube, if you're joining us on YouTube as well. That would be fantastic. And I do have a little audience question for you guys as well. So when you are on LinkedIn, have you ever looked at a post and thought, that feels like it's been written by AI? I'd love to get your thoughts on that. So enough from me. Let's get going with some wonderful insights from Sarah. So Sarah, thought leadership content.
Yes.
It's bandied around. It's a term.
It is.
What actually is it? And how does it differ?
Sorry, I agree. It is bandied around and it has become a bit of a catch-all term. But for me, it's content that's sparked by a topical discussion, an industry discussion, or a trend, or some information. But it goes and it gives it's your personal perspective and analysis. So it's part of a brand building strategy and brand building content. So it's not content that is designed to make a quick sale or a quick action. It's for long-term building trust, credibility and authority in your industry. And that's the purpose of brand building content. It's not everybody is ready to buy when they see your content. It's a question of being ready and being familiar with your audience. So there's a bit of recognition there when people are ready to buy and they may explore further. And you're already familiar because you've created a relationship with your brand building content. And for me, it helps me to think about what exactly thought leadership is and how it differs from other forms of content by my 3 I's framework. So that spark is the information that has given you some perspective or a thought. So that's the basic information. But then the thought leadership goes one step further, and it's your interpretation of that and also illustration. So illustration might be how that relates to your experience, how you've seen that work with clients, and interpretation, it just pushes it a bit further and think, okay, what does this mean for people? Here's a trend. Everybody loves reading about trends, but what does this trend actually mean for our industry, our clients? And just pushes it that bit further.
I love that. So it is really sort of, because that's what you've said all along, isn't it? It's about our experience and expertise, because you can have multiple people all doing the same thing, but we'll have different expertise and different experiences, which will make our content a little bit more unique. And one of the things I've always said is that for accountants, my example of it has always been like, you know, when it's budget time, there's no point as an accountant going, oh, budget's out, read all about it here, because that doesn't add any value, does it? It's not that translating of what actually does the changes mean to you. So that thought leadership, I guess, is very much tied up with explaining things and demonstrating why you are an expert in what you're saying.
Exactly. It's your experiences are your differentiator. So that's your uniqueness. So what experiences you had, the people that you've worked with, your approach, that's your uniqueness that you can bring to your content, and that's the value that you can bring. So in a world where AI can bring us all the content we want, it's your human insights, your experiences, that's your differentiator. It makes your content more relatable and trustworthy, and it also makes your content stand out. Because and for me, that's what offers value to your readers, which I think is we need to go for when volume is so easy.
Yes, exactly. It's not, and that's what I love, and we'll be coming on to that, but that's what I love about the whole new algorithm that LinkedIn's introduced, because it's not just about chucking posts out at volume
absolutely
at all.
I agree with you. I think that's a big it's a big improvement.
Hallelujah, as far as I'm concerned. Hallelujah.
Who knew we were going to say we loved the new LinkedIn algorithm?
Exactly. That's a first, isn't it? Loving it. Oh my goodness. And I'm also chuckling. Karen here has put on here that she with the, you know, the little question we asked about, does a post read sound like it's written by AI? She's put, yeah, she's often neurotic that hers sound like that, even though she's written it herself. I know that feeling exactly. I'm like, honestly, I have written this, it's not AI.
And I think it's quite difficult because it becomes part of our vocabulary, and you know, people use dashes before the M dash and ChatGPT, but now we're all afraid to use it. And I think that's the same with a lot of words. You know, I was just reading this morning that delve is an AI word, but I hear people use that all the time. So it's really hard to unpick. So I'm not surprised that that people are finding it difficult to think, is this or does it sound like AI? Yeah,
exactly. And Karen here has put the M dashes usually gives it away, and it is about sounding robotic. It does sound a bit, just lacks, it's really hard to actually sort of explain it, isn't it? It just lacks something that makes it feel.
I agree. It just lacks that human element to me.
Sorry, we could go on. We could just do a talk of this, because Jane's put this has made me laugh. American phrasing is a giveaway for me. Here's the thing. Absolutely. Anyway, we'll move on, because that is actually making me smile quite a lot, actually. But that's fantastic. So let's talk about the LinkedIn algorithm, because we've already alluded to that. So we've you know, this new LinkedIn AI-based LinkedIn algorithm that LinkedIn introduced at the end of last year has been a real game changer for LinkedIn in a lot of ways. For me, I think it's brought us back to what LinkedIn actually was way back when I started doing LinkedIn in 2013. So for me, that's why I really like it. But how then does this approach of this thought leadership align with LinkedIn's new algorithm? 360 brew or not 360 brew?
Yes, whatever we're terming it. But I think it works really well with it, because it's about relevance, I believe now. So it's relevance with your profile. So that is your experiences, that is your knowledge. And it's also about relevance in terms of who that content is shown to. So, and I think both really work well with this approach to human insights and in your thought leadership content. So I was just looking actually at a post from Richard van der Blom about his new algorithm report, and apparently, I'm sure it's something we've all noticed, how much more content comes from people that we're not connected to now in our feed. But I actually find that quite refreshing. I love to see posts from people I know, but also it's very related to the industries and sectors that I work in. And so I'm expanding my knowledge. It's all content that I'm getting value from and interested in seeing. But I think, so that is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to get content to people who are relevant to us. And I think that is, so I think that the human insight and the knowledge sharing that we can bring to our content and give it that human-led insight content works really well with the changes to the algorithm, whether that's 360 Brew 360 or whatever else it's called.
Whatever it's being called, yes. And I think for me, that's the most exciting thing, because it's not about, you know, whenever I say I do LinkedIn, everybody goes, oh, I should post more. And actually, it's not about posting more. It's about having that clarity of what you say in your profile and what you post, what you comment on and who you connect with, isn't it? That goes, and that's why, as far as I was concerned, it was called 360 Brew, because it does take a 360 picture.
Right. Yeah.
But that's just me. It may be wrong.
Well, I agree, because I think it's really easy to get caught up in. I mean, we've got to have a content schedule, you know, that to keep, you know, that's important. But I think that there's a line to be carefully trodden, because you can end up creating content for the schedule rather than to give value. And I think that if we're now prioritizing value over frequency, then I think that is a really good improvement.
I think the other thing that you said as well about clarity, because I think, again, this is going to be something that's bandied around around a lot. What do we mean when we say clarity exactly in our content?
So I think so for me, that is thinking, and I like to start anything I'm writing with thinking, what is the main point that I want the reader to take away from that? And I think, and I sometimes have that on a post-it note stuck to my laptop, because I think, especially if you're writing about the topic that you know really well, which you do if you're writing thought leadership, you kind of want to say everything, and you want to put all your knowledge down, and you think, oh, and another thing, but actually we'll leave that. We can come back to that. That's more content. That's another topic that you can come back to. But focusing on that one clear takeaway and having that right up at the front, that's what you start with, so everybody knows, this is what the content's about. This is what I'm going to be reading about. Is this for me? You know, and especially because we're all time pressed, so we tend to read the first bit and skim a lot. So that's where you need to have the point and the main takeaway of your content there. So yeah, so I think I also think with clarity, it's clear language. So I think, and that means simple. It doesn't. It means avoiding jargon if people don't understand jargon, but just simple terms. It doesn't mean simple doesn't mean dumbing down. I think simple actually is harder than using complicated words and jargon, because you really have to be clear and understand it yourself. So that's what I think clarity means in content.
I love that, Sarah, because I do have a bad habit of going this and this and this and this and this, and it's like, so I love the idea of a post-it note, you know, that you have, and go, what's the one thing that this piece of content, this thought leadership content, needs to get across? What's the one message? Which is fantastic. But then again, if you have coming up with lots of different things, you've got then multiple pieces of content.
Exactly. You can jot them down as you go along, and there you go. You've got some ideas for your next piece.
So, yes, which is another challenge people have, isn't it? What am I going to write about? So you've got loads of ideas there. Okay, so one of the challenges, I've already alluded to this, is, you know, that content, actually creating the content. And, you know, the thought leadership content always feels like it's long form, sounds like it could be quite time consuming to create. And we all know, we've all experienced the fact that LinkedIn reach has plummeted. How do we know that this, if we put all this time and effort into creating thought leadership content, that it's actually working? How do we measure that value that it's delivering?
Well, I think it is hard, as you say, if reach has declined. And I think especially with thought leadership content, if it's appearing in people's feeds that you may not be connected to, they may be more likely to, I hate the word lurk, but they may be more likely to be reading, consuming your content and not engaging or commenting on it. So there is that. But I also think we have to really think about what we mean by a successful post. So a successful post could be like hundreds of impressions, lots of comments. That's success. But also success is a post that's got 2 comments and not much engagement, but you know what, you've got a direct message and a new connection, on a relevant connection on the back of that. So that is another measure of success. You know, you've got a conversation or in your DMs, you've got a new follower that's relevant to you. And I actually think both types of content are valid and they're both successful. It's not saying that, you know, if you've got loads of impressions, that's not successful either. I think both are important in your content strategy and the content that you're putting out there. But just because content hasn't had a lot of impressions doesn't mean that it's not a successful post.
100% love that, because, you know, I always say don't chase in impressions, because there's no point. I remember, I don't know, maybe a year or 2 ago, it's actually when creator mode was around, and, you know, everything started to plummet a bit for me then, and I was like, but for me, that whole thing of chasing impressions is the social media aspect of it. That's what I dislike about LinkedIn, is that social media, like that old getting, nobody's liked my post or nobody's seen it. And actually, what for me, like you say, I'd rather have less people see it, but get more quality and qualified people looking at it than having loads of people and nothing. So I think you're right. You do need the mix of both. You need something that gets your content out there, but also that's really helps you get qualified. I'm just going to share, I love this from Owen. It was just going back to, you know, we were saying about creating content and having the clarity and having one thing in mind. And Owen's put, Owen Glenhill's put, it's a bit like writing a novel. Have the end game ready before you start writing. So you need to know what the end of
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Why are we writing this? Yeah.
Why are we writing this? Yeah, I quite like it. So that's another thing for you. I'm writing a novel. What's the end point? And Jane here has said that's how she was taught to write press releases.
Yes.
Remember those? Do we not have press releases?
I know. The important information up front. And I think that's also journalists are taught, get the important information at the beginning.
Do you know what? For me, that's a light bulb, isn't it? It is. So Sarah, thank you for that, Sarah Jane, because that's exactly what it's about nowadays, isn't it? With the AI algorithm on LinkedIn, it's about getting the important information right at the top. You know, so that almost, it's like people don't need to read or anything else. They just read, right, got it. Almost. Perhaps not.
I know we love to think that everybody's going to read our long form white papers and articles from the beginning to the end, but unfortunately that's not always the case. They read the beginning and skim, look through the headlines, and it's the same with our shorter form content, you know. So that's why you need to get your important information out at the front.
That's really interesting as well, even for shorter form content, isn't it? This comes back to that hook. What's going to get people reading? What's going to get them to, you know, at least see it and engage with it. So yeah, that's really important. Love that. Right, okay, so just moving on a little bit, because you know we have different types of posts. So we've got like posts where we want to promote something and self-promote, but then we've got sharing experiences. So that's demonstrating our expertise and things like that. Is there a line between having, you know, can we be too much of a thought leader and just do that content, or, you know, should we mix it up a bit? Should we have a bit of self-promotion in there?
Well, I think for me, for thought leadership, I actually think there's obviously a role for self-promotion, you know, that there is that's part of the content mix. But for me, it shouldn't really be a primary part of your thought leadership content. I actually think that is a bit of I think readers actually don't like that. If you're offering value through perspective and analysis and examples, and then it turns promotional, I think you lose the reader in that. So there's definitely obviously a role for promotional material, but I would keep that separate. So I mean, mention, it's not that you don't mention your business at all, but I would say keep it to a minimum. It's about, you know, rather than this is what we want you to know about us and our products, it's here's what, you know, here's how we can help you. So I think that's the distinction for me.
Yes, I love that. I love that. It's reframing it, isn't it? So that it's not about come and buy my stuff, or here's what I want you to know. It's about this is what we've seen working, and this is what's in.
And it's performing different roles. So your brand building content and your thought leadership content, it's building that trust, credibility, and authority in your sector. So it's got a different role, and it's long term. It's a long term project. So it is harder to measure how effective that is, but the Institute of Practitioners in Advertising, the IPA, has spent 40 years analysing and researching this exact topic, particularly in advertising, and they have tracked its value and actually measured it and aligned it with business success as well. So although it is, I haven't been tracking it for 40 years like the they could do that, but it has, you know, it has got long-term business value. So it's definitely a worthwhile part of your content strategy.
Yeah, it isn't, because we do need to invite people to buy from us, that's for sure, don't we? So but that is only when we've built enough trust. People only buy from us when they trust us, really, won't they? Or they perceive as being experts and trust us. So that's why this brand building or thought leadership or whatever you want kind of content is so important. And I think you mentioned earlier, it's about staying top of mind, isn't it? Because
it is,
we don't know where people are in the buying journey. Yeah,
absolutely. Because I you know, not everyone is at a stage where they're going to want to buy at that moment, but they may be a customer in the future. And the point of brand building content and thought leadership content is that you will be ready, top of mind, and a familiar name when they are in that position.
You're the first person they think of when they are ready to buy, and that's the key. And also, not only the first person, but the only person.
Yes,
because well, they don't actually want to go to any of your competitors.
That's right. Yeah.
Even better. So we should all be doing it, which is fantastic. And so I just want to bring this one up of what Anna, so many Sarahs, sorry. Anna has said about loving your tip about what's the point, and that we need to stick it on a post-it note. Because I like Anna, I go off on a tangent as well. So that's a really good point there, Anna. That's what I'm going to do as well. So stop me going off on a tangent. Fantastic. Right. Okay. So how can we help people who are watching this live or watching the replay? How can we help them getting to grips with this thought leadership? What tips can we? Because we know that, you know, we're busy. Business owners are busy. Lots of balls to juggle. We know it's time consuming. You know, I'm assuming that's one of the reasons that stops people doing it, or stops businesses doing it in the first place, sharing their real expertise. So how can we make it easier for people to do it, if you like?
I think it is time consuming. It is, you know, it's easier and faster and easier to share the information. But I think for thought leadership, the first point is to start with the customer. Think, what value is this content going to bring them? And I think the next stage is to push past that information sharing, to think, okay, so what are the implications? What's the impact of this for my customers? And I think that case studies are a really good route into, because sometimes you might think, hang on, I don't know, what do I think about this industry topic? I'm not quite sure. And I think your case studies and actually commenting on LinkedIn are both really good routes in to sort of identify exactly what your unique perspective and analysis is.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you see a post, you can think, hang on, I don't agree with that, or and that's real benefit then in your comment. But also I think your case studies can show you and how you worked with clients and your unique approach, and that can give you a really good starting point. So I think that is, use your case studies, and those are your experiences. You don't have to, it's weaving them in. You don't have to have a case study in the middle, and you can use them anonymously. You don't have to amalgamate several. So it's not, you can't necessarily identify people from that. And I think, again, trends, industry trends are a really good starting point. Everybody loves reading about trends, but it's your interpretation and pushing past those immediate information sharing to give your analysis and insights that really can add that value.
And yeah, so exactly, start with your customers already. So
yes.
If you don't have case studies actually written down, this is not about having written case studies, is it?
Well, not
you may have worked
no.
with a customer and
exactly.
So it's understanding what was their challenge, why did they work with you, what you did, and the results that they achieved.
Yes, exactly. So it's, and I think that can be, it's a really good way of kind of identify actually what makes your approach unique. Yes. By doing that. It's even if you're not going to spend the time to write it down, they can take quite a while. Just going through and thinking about this is a really useful exercise anyway. I think it can give you a lot of insights about, as I said, what your differentiator is, how you work, your approach, and it can form a lot of raw material to go into your thought leadership, because that's the good thing with our, if your thought leadership is based in human-led insights, you have all the raw material you need with your experience, your perspectives, and how you've worked with clients.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just, because it's not having an actual written case study, but having that process in your head and what's happened, I think is absolutely where we need to be, isn't it? I just got a couple of questions for you here.
Okay.
So Catherine has asked, how often should we post a thought leadership style post?
Well,
how long should they be? Should they be always long? Are they always long form?
So no, I don't think thought leadership posts need to be long form. I think they work well as, again, looking at Richard van der Blom's post this morning, apparently LinkedIn articles are having a bit of a resurgence, which I for one like. But I think posting, it kind of depends on how much time you have. I mean, obviously it would be great to aim for once a month, but maybe that's not realistic. And also you can slice and dice your thought leadership. So if you've written a LinkedIn article, then you can use that to form smaller posts. But I think it doesn't, I think part of that, thinking about the 80-20 rule, so that 80 is 20%, keeping to 20% as promotional posts, and 80% I would describe it as brand building. And part of that 80% is thought leadership. But it does take a long time it can take a long time to create, longer than other forms of content. So as you've got the time, basically, yeah.
And I think also as well, it's about repurposing, isn't it? It's not about recreating the wheel all the time. And I think, create one piece of content, like you say, break it up, but then you can repost it and do it again in 3 months' time or something.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't have to be reposted in a short form post, the next week. In fact, I think it's better spread out onto another topic.
And my last question, because I appreciate we've run out of time, but Kelly has asked a question here. So any tips for writing a non-dry case study? That is a good to
So my best tip for writing a non-dry case study is write in the traditional format. So challenge, solution, results, but don't use the subtitle challenge, solutions, results. Use other subtitles that take you through that offer a story rather than those. That would be my starting point. And it's, again, if people are going to be skimming your content, something you can do.
Yeah, so I guess skimming subheadings is good, isn't it?
Yes.
Skimming. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you, Sarah. Can you believe that we're just gone slightly over by our 30 minutes. I really appreciate all your wonderful tips there. I want to thank everybody for joining us live. If you catch us on the replay, that's fantastic. And Sarah, thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank you very much, Judy. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. And I'll see everybody next month. Bye for now.
Bye.